Okay, guys, a few housekeeping items before we get started. First, we'd like to say thank you for coming out today to our webinar on how to attract and retain top talent in a competitive job market. Um, Throughout the presentation, we will try to answer as many questions as possible. So make sure to pop them into the chat or the Q&A, two different places there. And then if we can't answer it throughout the presentation, we'll make sure to get them answered at the end. So let me go ahead and introduce you to our host, Philip Long. So Philip is our webinar host. He's been in the IT industry for over 25 years. He's the CEO of BIS, and he has actually got multiple certifications. He has an ethical hacking certification that he just recently received, so he can think like a hacker, protect against hackers. He is a CISSP and CMMC certified. He also has 600 plus clients, not only on the Gulf Coast, but also all the way up to Tennessee now. So expanding that geographical market. So I am going to pass it over to Philip. Oh, Philip, you're muted.
Well, thank you. Rookie mistake. Thank you, Christy, and thank you for everyone that's joining us today. I want to also introduce my guest. Full disclosure, Christy is also my marketing director. Christy could probably tell you how long we have been tied up. I'm very proud to say that I got her right out of Auburn. I'm not proud to say I got her out of Auburn, but I had to do what I had to do at the time. So, but she's been really great for our company. What year was that, Christy, roughly?
Oh, man, 2014. So we're on like 11 years now.
11 years. And Christy was had entrepreneurial spirit. And really one of the things that makes me a lot happy is she said she wants to start her own company. And I said, great. I'll be your first client. So, and it's really worked out well. But she's the CEO of Lumity, and it's a digital marketing firm. I give her high marks. She's been doing my stuff really a long time as an employee, and then probably longer now as a contractor, and it's worked out very well. She has clients throughout the U.S. and even Canada now. She's a graduate from Auburn with a bachelor's degree in radio, TV, and film. She's certified in HubSpot, and she helps us with all of our marketing here. She's also a proud mom and a wife, and she's very passionate about helping businesses with a purpose, and I can attest to that personally. And she's currently fixing to have a baby boy here before too long. So that's always exciting. Good.
Yes, thank you, Philip.
All right. Well, I want to first just kind of go over what kind of thought about this webinar and why we wanted to have it strategically right now. Businesses as a rule, from a business to business thing, or really I think business in general kind of lose focus during the summer. And as soon as they get the kids back to school, they're going to really, put some focus on their company. So one of the biggest drivers is the employees. So having the right team will make all the difference in the world. And that's really kind of leads us to our mission at BIS is we want to accelerate business growth by use of technology leadership, by identifying needs, implementing solutions, and then supporting that technology for sustainable success. At this point in my career, what I would love to do is basically help every one of my clients grow by 15% a year, and that would be plenty enough growth for our company, and it would be really a lot easier. So we've implemented a lot of steps to make that happen. We've created a client success team, and really trying to more integrate ourselves more. And that's why we do webinars and things on topics that may not directly seem like IT, but having been in business for 25 years, I really feel like I've kind of gone through the paces. I've got the war stories to tell and the things that I've learned, and I'm a lifelong learner, so I've learned a lot of things. want to just set the tone here, and then I'm going to let Christy do a lot of talking. But this, to me, is essential for business owners to understand kind of who they are, how they're wired, and all of those things. And one of the things that I've learned about myself and I've observed in a lot of business owners that I've worked with over the years is that they they don't recognize early enough what is your greatest asset, and really it's your energy, because studies have shown in business that 85% of the time action is the right answer. And too often, the business owner is just wore out from life. And they don't have the ability to take that action, to take that company to the next level. And really, whenever you think about that, those are all words, take it to the next level, blah, 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 whatever. But really, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is make life better. And all ships rise with the tide if we're doing this correctly. Our clients are going to have a higher level of success. Our employees and their employees are going to have a higher level of success. Our community is going to have a higher level of success. And we, as business owners, are going to have a higher level of success. That's really my goal. And I think of when I wake up in the morning, I have this vial of energy. And, the shame of life is that based on who you are and who you have surrounding you, not all situations drain that vial of energy equally. And as it relates to employees, you need to be very aware of who is sucking the life out of you, because that is someone that you probably need to separate yourself from. And that's difficult, and I don't want to sound harsh or whatever, but again, I'm thinking of that greater good. What's better for my clients, what's better for my employees and their employees, and we call it win-win-wins. What is it going to create that win-win-win? And sometimes you have to use that energy in a way, and that means getting rid of the things that are draining it. So I want to start off with that premise of why this is so important to get this hiring process and the culture thing right, because it's a treadmill at best in the best situation, but it can absolutely be a death spiral and a drudgery if we don't get it right. So we're going to go over some tips today that I think are going to help. All right, Christy, like I said, I'm going to pass this over to you a little bit about some of the statistics and the cost of a bad hire.
Absolutely. So we do see where it affects just so many different things in your business. You remember that old saying that your mom probably told you, you are who you hang out with, you got to be careful, do all of that. That is so true in business too. It's about who you hire, it's your village, it's your crew. You need those people there. And when you hire the wrong one and you don't get them out soon enough, you can lose 6 to 8 months just on onboarding them. And we're going to show you that timeline in just a minute. But 30% of their annual salary. I mean, you've put in training, you've put in assets, technologies, software licenses, and then you've used not only your time, other members of your team's time. It can ruin your company culture, which I don't even have a stat on that because that could be so detrimental. And then you've got 33% of team productivity is affected. So not only does one bad hire hurt that person, hurt you, hurt your clients, it's also hurting your entire team. And so, as we can see here, it's not even just, about the money, it's the morale, it's just creating, basically destroying everything that you've had built for this company culture. And you can see here, this is the timeline that we worked through, is that the investment to onboard. Everyone thinks, oh man, I've got like a 90-day period. That's just really not true. It's a lot longer than that, wouldn't you say, Philip?
Oh, for sure. Yes, absolutely. And I think kind of going back to the culture thing, if you're not careful and you have too many mistakes, what happens is your staff will wait you out. They will they'll be like, this is the next thing or whatever, and they'll just basically cross their arms and they're like, don't worry, just don't get too worried about it, because in in 2 to 3 weeks, they'll be on to something else. So it's very important that you
Exactly.
get this right. And we'll talk more about that later. But that, like having that team view you as someone who is able to get, I call it GSD, and the get stuff done. Sometimes I don't use the word stuff, but you really have to be focused and be able to execute. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm really excited about it because this is something that I'm doing it within my company right now, and just this whole getting ready for this has really got my focus on, and it's something you just have to relentlessly pursue.
Exactly. And if we're showing 7 to 8 months here that it can take, but the problem is, say they're the wrong hire, you let them go at 8 months, you got to start that process from the ground up again, y'all. That is not an easy task.
It's
So
terrible.
you
Yeah.
want to get it right the first time, or what's the saying? Hire slow, fire fast.
That's right, absolutely, and make sure that you have it. And this is key. This next slide here is so essential to getting this right before you hire that person. If you want to shorten that window, you can have your processes in place. You can have the key elements of what this person's going to do. You don't want to just wait. And what I see so many companies do, I've
Mm-hmm.
been guilty of it, is like, you know, you get somebody who's a bad apple, you should have fired them. Well, they're poisoning the culture on you day by day, but you don't fire them and you let them stay around. Well, they go off and find another job. Well, what happens then is like the morale's like, yeah, screw it. So and so just got another job. I'm getting another job, and before you know it, you are like in a bad position. So I'll start with, you need to basically have a campaign running all the time trying to find top talent, because the reality is that top talent is not looking for a job in most cases. They already have a job, and you really don't want the guy who doesn't have a job, because why don't they have a job, right? There's probably a reason, and a lot of times, not all the time for sure, but a lot of times it's not a good reason. That it didn't work out where they were, and now they're out in the job market. So you really want to focus on that prep. You want to really figure out who they're. We use a product called Stretty, and if any of you guys are interested in a great product, ping me and I'll show you. And I don't make any money off this. This is just some guys that I'm really impressed with. I think that for a business, it creates a model of how to run a business with your organizational chart, with their responsibilities all in one place. You need, and who their manager is, their shifts, their to-dos, their ongoing process for running the sync ups, all built into this product, so cheap, and it has changed our organization, and it is constantly getting better. So you want to figure out who their direct manager is, their responsibilities, that precise placement, and that accountability chart. Because if they work for two people, they work for nobody. There has to be one person that they are accountable to. There has to be a set of true responsibilities that they're accountable for, and they need to have a couple, not too many, but three, tops five, what we call KPIs or smart metrics, so that you can measure to see how they're doing, and you can coach to that. And like I said, in that Stretty product, they have to record those numbers on a weekly basis, and you can have a real authentic, honest conversation around it. And you have documentation when you do sync ups. You can even, it all runs in Teams. You can save the Teams meeting so that you have all of that history, and it puts it in a format for notes, so you can briefly remember what you talked about last time, where the issues were, and you can really roll the organization. So I'll stop there and just say that starting from the thinking of the end in the beginning, get the prep work done, spend 3 hours preparing that job, writing it down, getting it all done is absolutely the foundation of things, and that money, that time will bring you back so much money because now the expectation is set, and you can coach and manage to that expectation and know whether you got you can sell the job. They know what they're buying basically in the job and in the position, and then you can coach to it along the way. So there's not this ambiguity. Well, I thought you said or you meant. Anything you want to add to that, Christy?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things. Like, you don't want to get down to, 8 months down the road and you're like, wow, they're not hitting. And it's because we see that people don't have these in place. They don't have the numbers. Or a lot of times, like Philip said, an employee will be like, well, I didn't know that was my job. Go look at the accountability chart. Like, it has to be all laid out. And even some of the simplest things have to be laid out, because it may be common sense to us. It may not be common sense to them. They might not, and so if there's any room where they could say, well, I didn't know that was my job, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So this will help you
And it
big
never
time.
goes up. It never goes, oh, I thought I should have been doing twice what you were expecting. It
Right.
always goes down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. So go ahead and jump in about, like, whenever we look at today's, you know, candidates, because again, in a way, we're selling. That's why I wanted Christy from a marketing perspective. She's going to give us some tips later on in the presentation about, we're competing with other organizations for this person. So, I think we have to respect them, and the best way to get top talent is to give them what they want. So, what do they want, Christy?
Right. So people are looking, and these are super important because they can be used in social media. You got to show what your company is. So top talent, those things that they want, they're seeing it on your social media channels, right? So people are wanting flexibility. COVID kind of changed that a bit. People want the ability, if their kid's sick, to work from home that day, or they want the ability, to have, anything. They could be sick. They want to work from home that day. They want purpose. They want their personal values matter, right? So they want to see your core values, and businesses don't talk enough sometimes about their core values, which is really relatable to a person, especially if they're looking for a career and not a job. I think that's like a big distinction. Like, if they are really interested in growing with your company, you got to show them how they can grow with your company, which is the development part. So if you just bring them on and they think they're just going to be a tier one technician forever, some people may be okay with that. But if they want growth, you got to show them early on, hey, look, if you get these certifications, we can bring you here. So a way to do that for marketing is promote your employees who've been certified, who've gotten the employee of the month, that sort of thing that shows that they're appreciated. And then that transparency. They want to be able to communicate with leadership. And I think that's one of the biggest things when people don't feel heard. And so that's something with the Stretty, like Philip was talking about, where employees can be heard through there. They can put in issues, they can send it to the top, they get feedback from those issues. It's not just an issue. Wouldn't you say, Philip? Like, it's so much more than that, like,
Oh, for
communication
sure.
wise.
Yeah. It's they're a part of the solution. Either you're part of the problem or you're part of the solution, and you want to make it where the onus is on them to be part of the solution, because you've given them all the tools. Here's how, if you have an issue, here's how you take it up with whoever, or if there's a communication that needs to go out throughout the entire organization, there's a way that you can put that information in, and all the other meetings will automatically have it in their headline section of that meeting. So again, giving them in a very simple way so that you could look at it from a negative perspective and say, so that they can't complain because they have a way to come, or they can, but they have to turn around and say, okay, and here's how I want to resolve that. I tell
Right.
people all the time, you come to me with a problem and a solution, 99% of the time I'm going to say, man, thank you, and I love your solution. Now let's do it. But that's got to be really simple, and it's got to be like bred into the culture where you don't allow people to just have a bitch fest for just to blow off steam all the time and poison everyone else, where it's like, no, I mean, I hear you, and that is a problem. Life's full of problems, but we have a way to turn that problem into a solution. I'm a big Stoic philosophy fan. And, Marcus Aurelius, says, in simple terms, the challenge is the way. If we look at that challenge and we see it for what it is, and we're authentic and we communicate about it and we really recognize what it is, then that's going to be the way forward. And we can thank ourselves for the challenge. You can think, Jocko Willink, he's a SEAL guy, Navy SEAL guy, and he wrote some books. And every time something bad would happen, he said, first thing out of his mouth was good. I practice that as much as I can. Whenever something bad happens, the first thing I say is good. Now we're going to find out X or Y or Z. And that mindset in a leader is absolutely so powerful, because I think a lot of times the naysayers will sit around and see if you're going to crumble, or if you're going to cry, if you're going to freak out or whatever. And I get calmer. The worse the situation is, I get calmer and break it down into core bites and stuff like that. And all of those things lead for people coming to you when there's a problem rather than running away.
Right.
All right. And then, of course, you said balance. And that's right. People want very much respect between personal work. And I think as business owners, I'm guilty of this, where I am this business to a large degree. And so if it's midnight is what it takes, then midnight is what it'll be. And you can't impose that level on just everybody on the crew. Some people will accept that and you pay them for that, and that's cool. But you need to be sure to get that nailed down about those types of expectations. And if you get it done on the front end, you're much more likely to be successful.
Right. And we see here too, like without breaking the budget, not every company is going to be able to pay employees $100,000 salaries or more for everyone. So there's ways to find these top candidates for the right position, but you also have to show a few things here, like creating that visible internal promotion pathway. As soon as they get on board, letting them know there's ways to grow, or recognition programs. That's a huge thing. People just want to know that they're doing a good job. And then the onboarding processes, that's a big thing. When they come on in the company and they just feel like they're just completely lost, they want to feel like they have support. So that's where the managers have to kind of step in, help these people, engage with them, not necessarily, they don't have to be their best friend, but they want to feel like someone's in their corner to help them out if they get stuck. So.
Well, I love it. And I tell you, another thing that I think is so important as it relates to managers, I've done this so many times. That's why I want to say it. I'm basically just telling you guys all my failures. But you get somebody who's really good at a particular position. Let's say I got in my environment, a great technician. I'm like, man, they're so good. God, they get it. They can close tickets. They make people happy. They're fast. They're efficient. They're effective. They communicate. I think, okay, I'm going to turn them into the manager. And oftentimes that great whatever person as a worker is not going to be a great manager. We have to have an alternative path where maybe they could maybe just pay them more money. They're happy with what they're doing, but that authenticity and that transparency to say, look, you're really crushing it. And I'll tell you, because demotion is a very difficult thing. You put somebody into a position and you try to pull them back out of that position. It's messy. I think in general, it rarely works over the long run. I've had a few that work, and especially as of late, I've had some work. But again, it's because of the high level of authenticity and transparency. We changed one of our core values to authentic. Simply because it's the most powerful attractant. If somebody knows you're not BSing them, you're telling them exactly what you feel. They can disagree with you, but if they believe that you are telling them, they do it in like measurements of waves, and the wave doesn't get stronger, the amplitude doubles. If you get two people on the same wavelength, you got double the height in that wavelength. And it is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing, but it takes a little bit of, I think soul searching for your core values, getting those right, and then going, man, I'm all in on this. And living that, I think, will pay extreme dividends.
That's
All right,
right.
this is going to be in Christy's wheelhouse here about really putting the ads out, putting the right ads out in the right places? So talk to us about that.
Yeah, so it's not even just about the right ads because as I said earlier, it's also about just like showing all the time that you are that company, you are your core values. If people don't see that, they're not going to believe it. So one of the best ways to do it is social media. So you get on Facebook. If I'm looking for a job, I'm looking at their Facebook page, their website, they're trying to figure out everything about you. They want to see that you are truly, selling what you say you are in the job description. So there's a couple different things. You really need to post on multiple platforms, right? I've actually seen where we've gotten people. Philip actually got me from Craigslist a long time ago. And that was like back in the day. So many different platforms. LinkedIn's a great one, but it can be overwhelming with so many people trying to find a job on there. Indeed is one of our favorites, and you can set up so many automations to make your life easier. And I know Philip will speak on that in just a minute. And then Facebook, right? People are out there on Facebook. You might find a wonderful stay-at-home parent who's just right for the job that you want, and they're only, wanting to work so many hours. It fits your perfect job. And so that's why it's so important to go across multiple platforms there. And referrals, getting your employees involved. If you have a star employee, going to them and saying, hey, do you know somebody else? That's how you do it. You find your stars, and they're going to hang out typically with other stars. So
Yep. And I tell you, like I think crafting the ad and putting in exactly what it's about, what the position truly is. But again, you've already done that, so it ain't hard to put it in there. And then, talk about the key performance. Talk about words that matter. And I always say, like, one of the things I
yes.
say is like best in class. I want the best. Here's what we're trying to do, guys. I bring them into my personal vision for what I'm trying to do. Within with our mission statement. Look, we're not here just to close tickets. We're here to make businesses successful with technology. And again, that why and that bigger picture. Some people really latch onto that. The ones you want really latch onto that. They want
Mm-hmm.
a why, they want a personal reason. And then I want to jump to like using the tools. Like I like Indeed a lot. Uh, I like the tools they have. I like how you can I always pay for the premium type services where you can go out and you can send requests to people on there based off of their resume. And according to Indeed, they're 73% more likely. That's the ones that get hired are the ones that you reach out and request. Like I said previously, the good people aren't looking for a job, but you could go out and entice them if you've got your ducks in a row. They say, "Wow, that looks like a good company. I like everything that I've heard and seen, and I see everything everywhere I look on them. I look at their social media, I look at their webpage. We're going to talk about the standardization of your interview process. All that lines up, and I'd like to work for that. They have a cause, they have a meaning, they have a purpose, and I want to work for them, but make it easy on yourself as well. But you reach out, and then when they respond or whatever, I always send them a little, I call it a PDL reach out, and it's a template that's saved, and it'll automatically put the job title that I'm trying to hire, and it's got some words in there about how I want to have that quick introductory call. I do it on the phone first, 15 minutes. And I send it out to them, and it's linked to my calendar where they can book their own time. It has a Teams meeting that I can then record so that if I want to, it gets down to like deciding which ones are going to come in for an in-person interview, because that would be the next step in my process. I can go back and look at those videos and say, that's the one, man. I really like that about them. Or I could show someone else and say, what do you think? So record those videos so that you can go back and look at them and make it easy again, because it's really a numbers game. And I will say that sometimes, I'll fire up ads whenever I start to see trouble. The person that you're talking about on your team, and I don't care how long they've been there, I don't care what institutional knowledge they have, but the person that you're constantly talking about needs to go. I say that for myself as much as I say it for the people on this call. The person and I'm talking negatively about, I'm not talking about praising, I'm talking about the one that always is causing you problems, you need to get rid of, because that person is zapping your creativity, they're stealing your joy. It might be a word
Hmm.
that that's used today. They're robbing you, and you're not really maybe hearing it, but all of a sudden when you let that person go, it's painful. And I ain't saying that, I'm not heartless. It hurts. It bothers me sometimes. But you'll hear your clients will say, something will come up and they'll tell you, yeah, that. And you will get affirming responses all over from people, your staff and everything. Maybe your spouse when you get home. It's like, wow, you seem like you're in a lot better mood. Yeah, my leech, I knocked my leech off today. And again, I'm not trying to be derogatory towards people, but I think you get my point. Is you need to pay attention to what's stealing that vial of energy from you. Could be a client. I fired clients because the cringe factor, you know, and you will do better at understanding your core values, what you're good at, what you want to focus on, where you want to go, what do you want, and surrounding yourself with clients, with people, and everybody who fits that mold. You're going to thank me if you can start to execute on that, I promise.
Exactly.
All right, let's talk about building that repeatable interview process. And I talked about it earlier about getting the ad right and all that, but then as it flows, bang, first impressions, right? That's so important because, quite honestly, what I think is that the way that that person comes off to me is probably the way they're going to come off to my client. And if it's abrasive or if it's not warm, it doesn't fit the mold and the model of what we're trying to do here, then I know right then, after I could know in the first 5 minutes that this is going nowhere. But I also set it for 15 minutes so that I don't have to suffer. I don't want to be rude. I don't want to be disrespectful to people, but I also don't want to waste an hour-long interview or something with somebody that I know in the first 5 minutes pretty much that they're not going to be a fit. So that's one
That's
thing.
right.
And then look at the technical capabilities, the experience, the problem-solving abilities. You can use Chat GTP, and Chris, you can talk a little bit
Yeah.
about how we use Chat GTP to develop those questions and things like that.
Exactly, because you got to think of it. It's just like a sales funnel. This is your hiring funnel. So at each step, the questions are going to, matter. So looking at the different positions, it's always good to keep those questions for if you have to rehire, but just come up with like 5 basic questions in that phone screen. Use ChatGPT. What are the best, sales questions if I'm looking for this, salesperson? And what you can even do is Indeed has a really cool thing where they can actually record the person and they can answer those questions before you even get on a call. And so if they don't go through that step, well, they're out of your funnel. It's just gotten more narrow. And then you can listen to those questions and then even go and book a phone screen. So there's some really cool tools, like Philip had said earlier, that are allowing, um, well, making it easier for business owners and executives to do the hiring. And same thing with the skills interview. Maybe find the exact position you're looking for, go out there, look through job ads, but ChatGPT is going to be one of your best friends. Pop in there. If I want my salesperson to make X amount of money, how many dials do they need to make? How much, what skills do they need? And when you start asking those things, ChatGPT is going to give you a great response of um, kind of like a checklist that you can use in the skills interview.
Yep, for sure. And then, of course, culture is essential. If you know they're going to be caustic to the culture, then then
Yeah.
you can't hire them. I don't care how good they are at what they do. If they bring other people down, all the good they do is gonna drain your energy and everybody else's energy on the team. You just can't hire them unless they're a culture fit. And I think too often, whenever you don't have this process in place, you wind up latching on to somebody, or you hold on to somebody who you know is caustic to the environment, but you hold on to them because you think you got to have them. And or you hire somebody just because they can fog a mirror, because you got to get somebody in there right then because you done let the I call it letting the tail wag the dog. You let that person hang on, and then finally they quit, and two other people quit too because they that's the way things happen, right? Oh, so and so is going to get a lot. The grass is greener. Well, I'm getting the hell out of here too. So you got to really think about those things whenever you're doing this. Um,
And I was just going to add one more thing to that is like bringing in people to your interviews, because that hiring manager, we could wear like rose colored glasses. And so we're looking and we think this perfect person is perfect, right? And I've just got to have this person. But then I bring in my star employee and they're like, oh, I don't know about that, So I think bringing in other people, I mean, Philip, when you hired me a while back, I think you brought in like 4 people, the core people I was going to be working with, to also interview with them.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Because everybody's going to have a little. We have a little scorecard, and you just mark how they relate in 4 or 5 different areas, so that you can. And everybody has a different take, and you'll hear a lot of times. Again, there could be something about that person that you really like, and we're humans, and we have biases, and we're looking for those biases to be affirmed. So that having the extra team with a standard set of questions, and they're not hard, you can chat GTP them up in a couple of minutes, and you can have that stuff. And really, again, and the way you do anything is the way you do everything in potential employee. They're like, wow, I like their interview. They're serious about this. So whenever they come on board, and if you got a good onboarding process, all that, you're serious about all that, they're going to think they work for a good company. They're going to be a better employee, and all the ships are rising with the tide. Whereas if you do a sloppy job, they're going to think you're a sloppy person. So it's really important to work through this process. You could do it in 3 to 4 hours with the focus, and you know, so that's something that I know Christy could help you with. I would help you with. Christy does this kind of stuff for a living. I'd throw in my 2 cents probably for free, and just to help another business owner. So we talked about the interview questions and about behavior. We use a particular behavioral and assessment tool called DISC. It's dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance. It's a quick test. They answer 20 questions, and it defines kind of how their behaviorals are. They also have other tests that we'll do for certain positions about emotional intelligence. If they're really going to communicate heavily with people, you want to understand how they might, if they can picture themselves, how another person might perceive them. That's kind of like emotional intelligence, where they're able to pick up on the cues. I call it, I say this, I have said this often, is, we're the crowning creation, humanity, as good or as bad as that might be, but that's where we sit. And we have the ability to, basically, I call it elf on a shelf. I could think back, or I could, while I'm talking, think about myself sitting in the corner over there on a shelf, observing myself, and go and critique myself. And I think that's a very powerful skill that we need to implement as humanity, and to refine our skills. But if you have somebody in a highly personal or outgoing position, you may want to drop in a emotional intelligence or a stress. They have another one that talks about how they handle stress, so that number one, you can understand them better, and number two, you can see when they are under stress, try to help them, and then maybe even say, you know what, they're not going to work well in that position because it's pretty dang stressful. So
that's right.
those behavioral questions, the cultural fit questions, and then, of course, the skills kind of questions that, again, you can simply chat GTP a lot of this stuff up and give them the test, and then see how they operate, how can they answer those questions, are very, very, very powerful. And I think if done properly and not excessively, the candidate will desire your business over another business, because they see you as someone who, you know, the person you wants a career. They're not looking for how can I slip up in this place and hide all day. that's the person you want. So the person that you're looking for is like, I want my life to mean something. I want to have meaning, and they seem like very much they're everything lines up with what they're saying and how they're asking me questions. And I think the chances of getting somebody who's going to fit all those areas are going to be much higher if you do a good job on the hiring.
Exactly.
Yep. Here's some other really good things if you want to touch on some of those, as far as when you're looking at the responses coming back at you, what are you looking for?
Exactly. So you're really looking, you don't want to waste your questions on something just like, oh, tell me about your experience. You're not really getting much from that. One of the things that I'm always looking for, and I know Philip, you are too, I want people who are going to try to handle it themselves in the beginning. They're going to call support, they're going to Google it, they're going to get on YouTube to figure out how to fix the problem. And I want to hear that in their result, like their answers. So that's where I'm going to ask questions like we saw on the previous slide, things like, okay, how did you handle a situation like this? How did you find the answers? And then that's going to give me a good idea if that's the kind of person I'm looking for. So there's just so much you can read in between the lines. You could even ask ChatGPT to give you a scorecard. To try to figure out these different things for each position. Now, not every position is going to be the same, right? Your account manager, you're going to need more of that personable, there's someone you'd want to be friends with type person. A technician, you really want their expertise. So it really matters the position, and what you're looking for on each one is going to be different according to that position.
Yep, very, very much so. But looking and having, again, thinking of what am I looking for in this person? What is maybe my star person? What are the things that they do that I really like? I have one guy, and I'm gonna tell you, he is a rock star as it relates to understanding the client's needs. You know, and a lot of times I'm in the IT business, so I tell my guys all the time, it's not about bits and bytes; it's more about DNA. And our clients really they just don't want to have a problem. It's pretty much that simple. We want to be very proactive so they never have a problem. And if they do have a problem, they want to fix fast. And if it goes sideways, they want to have a high level of communication. So and it's difficult because especially when you look at those behavioral profiles, like a good engineer, they are steady and compliant. They don't like change. They're in an industry that changes all the time. They don't like a high level of communication because they want to kind of get in their little hole. So you have to put in all types of measures and countermeasures and maybe even staff. I have a particular person, and that's one of her main roles is to do communication on things that go sideways, that aren't getting fixed fast, that we're having to wait for something. So you want to build your team out in a way that, of course, thinking of the client first because they're ultimately the one. I tell my guys all the time, I said, dude, I don't pay you. I said, our clients pay us. They pay me and they pay you
Exactly.
too. And if we're missing that mark, we're all going to go broke. So, but again, looking for the responses for the outcome you need to define your outcome and then look for people who kind of naturally or natively kind of form in alignment with that. I'll say one other thing is that one candidate is no candidates. You need to have 3 to 5, 3 minimum, where you go, you know what, I can't decipher which one's basically the best, but something tells me this one's a little better, but I think all 3 of these guys would work. Uh, then you're in a power position. You're going to be much more likely to be successful. And just in general, your demeanor is going to be more focused on the outcome that you're looking for rather than, oh my God, I got to get somebody in here because, we're so behind the 8 ball. I hope there ain't no IT guys on here, but you know, I'm gonna tell you one of the reasons why most IT guys fail. A couple of reasons, because they're run by techs, not by entrepreneurs, is probably the biggest reason. But secondly, is they won't hire. They can't distinguish between a spike and a trend. And you can grow your business to the level of skill set and resources that you have. Now, I ain't saying go out and hire a whole bunch of people. I'm saying, but you need to be on the, if you're going to grow, you're going to have to steady hire. And you're going to have to hire a little ahead of the growth so that you're able to maintain. And the back door don't get wider than the front door on you. But that you got to sometimes hire. And, of course, getting the right person, but also, again, that execution. 85% of the time, you're going to do better by executing than laying back. And IT people, by default, they don't like change, so they lay back, and that's why most managed service providers, companies that I'm in, they never grow to $1 million top line revenue. 95% of them are under $1 million, and they're really underserving the clients because it's gotten so diverse that one guy or two guys or three guys, they can't handle all the needs of a business today. So sometimes we got to hire before we think we need that person. All right, here's some strategies on kind of a little bit of a summary, but jump into this for me, Christy, on like how do we retain that top talent? We got them in the door. Everything's going good. We onboarded them good. Now we can't forget about them.
Exactly. It's a lot of what we've marketed to them already is just, showing them that growth path. Ongoing feedback. I know you do a yearly survey to your employees asking like what could be better, what could we do. Another thing I love is BIS has, when you come on as an employee, you get a sheet and you put in how you like to be recognized, you put in your favorite things, all of this, because that's so important. Um, you know, some people may want public recognition, others don't. They want it to be silent, they want it behind the scenes. So it's important to do that as well. And then really steady, having a weekly meeting with your employees, one-on-ones occasionally, doing a monthly presentation, just keeping everyone in the loop, like a state of the company, talking about that, and then interviewing your star employees. Philip said it the first time. When you interview those people, you can figure out what they love about BIS, and then you can use ChatGPT to craft a wonderful job description. But it also helps you find those people who are attracted to the same things as the star employee. So
That's right. I have a business coach, and one of the things that, two things he works on me all the time. One is, what do I want? He constantly asks me that question. What do I want? What am I trying to accomplish? What am I trying to do? And I think we get caught up in the day to day and we forget really what we're trying to do. So he brings me out all the time and says, all right, now you want this, right? This is what you want. And I believe that there is a direct correlation between understanding what you want and just like it's an immutable law, and it's not magic. It ain't name it, claim it in religion. It's really whenever you have a focus on where you're going and what you want, and if you keep asking yourself those questions, you get better answers and you start discussing it with people. And before you know it, you're reading about it and people are you're finding people and all of a sudden you're heading down the path to what you want. So understanding really what you want is so important as the leader of the company. And I'll say one other thing is like the one-on-one sync ups is, I think, crucial to having them set up and done we have ours set up for every 13 weeks. We have a one-on-one and then we do one of those as an annual. And where there's an opportunity. What's going well? What's not going well? Let's look at your numbers. Let's see, let me get to know you. What do you really want to do? One of those, the annual one, has a deal in there where it talks about where we help them goal set. And not everybody's a goal setter, and we have to remember that. I'm a goal setter, so yeah, I natively go to that. Some people have to kind of get led to that. Some people don't care about that. But being flexible, and you talked about like understanding what motivates them. Some people, if you let them go work at the dog pound, or whatever, like a free thing one day, like, man, that just made their day. Yeah, they let me off to go work at what I loved, what I love, or some of them want a gift card. I'll tell you a little strategy I use is that if I do like dinner gift cards, I'll mail it to their wife or their significant other. We have a lot of men, but not so much now. We got a lot more women nowadays, but mail it to their house. so that their significant other gets it, so that they might go, hey, when are we going to get another free dinner at Ruth's Chris on the company? So you got them kind of working for you. That may be a little underhanded, but hey, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. All right, so let's talk a little bit about culture. We've kind of touched on it in a lot of different ways, but jump in on that for me.
Yeah, it's really, your secret weapon, and you got to market this to, so we think, okay, so culture is great. We need a good culture. People will not stay if they hate their job, if they feel suffocated, if they don't like their managers, if, there's so many reasons. So they got to know your core values. And if you're not marketing that, so I say you have to market to the public, you also have to market to your own employees. That's what the state of the company meeting does. It markets, the core values, what's going on in the company right now. So you got to do that. Same thing with personal support. They need to know that you genuinely care. One thing that I've always found phenomenal is like if anyone's been hurt, had a loss, anything like that, Philip and his team send flowers. It's just a nice little thing to know that people care about you. It's not just a job. And just having that open communication. There was one employee who used to live, he just wanted to go to lunch with Philip, So, like, there's just so many different ways of creating that culture. And then getting the departments together. So, doing maybe a company outing or a lunch once a month. I'm not going to say that's going to make people stay there, but people like to get to know others in the company. So,
Yep. You got to make it where it's just ongoing. It's like a machine. That's just what you
mhm.
do during the all hands meeting. That's what we call our month end meeting. I always try whenever we recognize the employee of the quarter and then the employee of the year, and then we also have a caught you doing something great. It's these cards. I have some on the back of my thing. Whenever you see somebody really helping out and their peer signs up and signs and says what they did and put it in a bucket, and we read all those out aloud so that we're getting input from not just leadership or whatever, but from everyone throughout the organization is really a nice touch that brings people together. And you'd be surprised, people really listen when their peers are praising, even other people. Like I watch the room and I'm watching and people are listening. I may be up there talking, they ain't listening, but whenever they do that, they're really listening on what somebody said about somebody else, how they helped them out of a jam or again, but we also we'll send flowers, cards, and stuff depending to our clients whenever we hear that, because again, these are, we're in the IT business, but it's not bits and bytes. It's DNA. It's trying to make their life better and easier, and being there for them is really what the world's more about than bits and bytes. All right, I want to breeze through this. This is something that's really important. There's been studies that have done. I know an older study. I didn't look at it for this particular meeting, but especially the whatever we are on now, the Gen Zs, Gen Y, whatever. But the younger people really gravitate to good technology. And a while back, like compared to the technology that business had and what they had personally, the business was so far behind in their technology. And, it's something that people, a lot of times they don't want to buy new computers. Companies like, oh God, time to buy new computers again or whatever. But there's more about that than meets the eye sometimes. The overall culture, because I don't think people articulate it. I've been in this industry a long time, and I can look at a lot of things. I can go into a business and about tell you what their culture's like just by the way the place is decorated or how it's kept or how the cars that are in the parking lot, the way the yards cut or whatever, the landscaping's done. But technology says something, and efficiency. If you claim and you want a high performing team and you make them work on slow, crappy computers, they may not even be able to articulate it, but in the back of their mind, they're going, they don't love me. They don't care about me. And then setting those expectations because a lot of people have nice technology at home, and if they come in and have to work on junk, that's not going to set the culture very well. And there is definitely links and studies that have been done where people will leave a company because of bad technology. I hate it. Now, every time I hear it when I'm talking to support or some reason I'm talking to somebody, well, hold on, our system's slow. I tell my people if they ever say that, I'm gonna kill them. Uh, but you know what I mean. They should not say that. But I can't get on a call. It seems like, and they're saying that whoever you're talking with, they're saying, "Hold on, my system's slow." Well, I promise you that is not a driving force in retention of employees. So it's something that there's a lot of nuances in managing your assets. Now, from a security perspective, there's reasons to do it again. It's just one more little box that gets lit up by maintaining your technology. All right, and just looking at the security stuff is there's a thing out in our industry called shadow IT, and it simply means that if you don't give your people the tools they need, they'll go find their own to make their life work. And I'll give you just a couple of instances. I could go into the bad side things I've seen where there's been clients hacked and everything else. First off is a password manager. The average person, let's say, has 60, 70 accounts that they need a password. Well, usually it's your email address and a password. You can't remember 70 complex passwords, so you do a couple of things. Number one, you start storing business passwords in your private password account tool like Keeper or LastPass or something, or you write them down even worse. So a lot of things like that. Another one is like Dropbox or tools for syncing files from the house to the office. If you they need those files to work, well, they'll just basically take them out of your filing cabinet and put them in theirs. They leave the company. They have a kid playing on a computer and they get the thing hacked. Now your files are out in the wild. So having those cloud tools right are very important in secure connectivity. Again, AI is such a powerful tool, and training your staff how to use that is a big positive thing that encourages it. It helps you and it helps them. It helps them be more productive because AI is like, on any question you ask it, is like having a team of PhDs answer that question in most areas. And then, of course, the hardware we talked about, and then also security training, not setting them up to do something that could embarrass them and they won't tell you that they've done it or put your company at risk.
Uh,
All right. So I'm trying to really respect everyone's time and wrap this up. We want to have a few questions, of course, but for people that are on this call, we'll give you guys a free business risk assessment where I'll come out, and I personally still do this, and Christy can help as far as if you wanted to really focus on putting together a stem to stern hiring process. Christy
yeah.
would have a free conversation with you to see what that looks like. But from kind of my expertise, if I will do a in-depth review of your overall posture. Like, how's your business set up? Is there areas for improvement? Looking at areas for vulnerabilities and identifying them, and then I can give you some actionable recommendations that can really, I think, help your business get you maybe out of that rut that you're in from the summer. And like, I'm hoping they're going to lower rates, and 2026 is going to be a really jam up year. So we got to get some things in order if we're going to get there, because it's not going to happen by accident. We all know that. So, any questions, Christy?
Yeah. So we did have one come in that said, how do you handle employees who are just doing the bare minimum? Ooh.
I'll give you a real example from today. And I'm gonna tell you that this is very challenging. I'll be completely transparent. I've owned this company I had a partner for about 19 years, and we're coming up on our 25th year. And my partner was a heavy tech guy who didn't like measurement. So again, you have sometimes have a cultural change, and I've implemented that. It's a long story, but I'm implementing that right now. But basically, looking at your business, looking at the analytics. Last year, I do an annual theme every year. A part of last year's theme was let's get analytical. And basically, not in public, but in private, showing them how they're performing against their peers. That's why those KPIs, those key performance metrics, those numbers, we use Streti, and they put them in themselves weekly. And you can then use that data to say, hey, guy, this morning, hey, guy, you're so far behind your peers. And I always take the approach, where have we failed you first? And I'm cool the first time or two, but I will get to where it's like, look, bro, this is actually on you. Things are based off of trust. Relationships are based off of trust, and I'm trusting that you're going to do your part, and you're not. And if you're not, what are you going to do to get yourself there? So first conversation, I always do three deals, and there'll be another meeting in 2 weeks. There'll be a third meeting in 2 weeks. Again, Streti makes that so easy to review, and you make changes. Or if you can't get them to where they need to be, they got to go. And that's hard. And I'm not saying that's easy. And I know that's why you got to have this hiring process in place so that you're not subject to the vulnerabilities of being in a weak position because you don't have staff to take care of your clients. Did I answer that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think everyone has some
personal.
issues.
That was personal because I'm dealing with that right now with somebody. And I like the guy. I want them to be so successful, and they could. I think their focus is wrong. And it may not be a fit. I don't know.
Exactly.
All right.
Okay. We had one more question come in. What are some creative ways to stand out?
Christy, that's a you question.
Okay, so just like you get customer testimonials, get employee testimonials from those interviews that you're doing. Maybe have a person shoot a video. I recently did this for a client. They shot a video of what they love about the company, and we did a compilation and put it out there. And, people do better on social media than just business propositions, right? And sales and all, selling to them all the time. So that people love to see what's going on at your company. And then you can utilize that in your marketing. When you have potential prospects that you want on your team, you can show them why people love your company, and then just highlighting every single little benefit or perk that you do. I know at BIS we post about the company meals, we post about the Christmas parties, the outings that we do, any fun thing in the office, any type of perk, providing snacks, that sort of thing. It just makes a big difference. And when people see people having fun, they want to be part of that culture too. So that's one of the biggest things is just, market to them like you would a client.
Yep, for sure. All right. If you guys would like to get in touch, I'm very available. You can DM me or whatever, and you can of course go to our website. There's a phone number to get in, and then also an email address if you have questions or if you'd like to take us up. Someone may call you. I may have Carrie call you guys who are on the call to see if you'd like to, just as a courtesy follow up. If you have other things that you said, man, I wish you'd have covered this, or gosh, man, I want to learn about this or whatever. What you guys, a lot of times your ideas and the things that I hear from my clients are what I'm maybe struggling with, and it motivates me because, you can't teach something or you can't do it, be good at it unless you kind of have worked through it. So like this little exercise fired me up because I'm really looking for a great 2026. I've been preparing this last year, so far this year, to get us in preparation. I've been going department by department, really setting the standards, working all the stuff we talked about today. It's so fresh in my mind because I'm doing it right now. And so, we need that fuel from somewhere. And oftentimes we can get it from our clients or our peers or whatever. So I love when people tag me with a problem because it makes my mind go to work. So get in touch with us. Again, thank you guys so much for spending time with us. I kept you about 4 minutes over, but I think we got it. It's a wrap.
Sounds good. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Christy. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Philip.